He had billions in the bank and technology that changed the world. She had a small coffee shop and dreams bigger than her reality. Their world should never have intersected until one cup of coffee rewrote both their destinies forever. What Marcus Chun tasted that morning didn't just surprise him. It awakened a memory he thought was lost forever. But how does a Silicon Valley billionaire fall for a neighborhood barista? What secret in her brew connected to his forgotten past? And how did a struggling cafe transform into the coffee empire everyone talks about today? This story will move you in ways you never imagined. Before we begin, please like, comment, and subscribe, because what unfolds next will restore your faith in destiny. San Francisco sparkled under the morning sun, a city where innovation met ambition on every corner. In this restless metropolis lived two people whose paths seemed destined never to cross, until fate decided otherwise. Marcus Chun stood in his penthouse office overlooking the bay, reviewing reports that would determine the future of millions of dollars. At 38, he'd built Tech Vision from a garage startup into a global empire. Forbes called him the Oracle of Silicon Valley. His AI software powered half the world's smartphones. His investment portfolio made venture capitalists envious. But success had cost him something invaluable: joy. His late grandmother, May Chun, had been his anchor. Growing up in San Francisco's Chinatown, she'd run a tiny tea shop where she crafted blends with the patience of a true artisan. Each cup told a story. Each sip carried warmth that transcended temperature. Tea is memory, she'd say in Mandarin, her hands moving with practiced grace. You don't just taste the leaves. You taste the love that prepared them. When she passed away during his MBA program at Stanford, something inside Marcus broke. He'd cried in his dorm room for 3 days straight. Raw, uncontrollable grief that shook his usually controlled demeanor. Since then, nothing tasted right. Not the artisanal coffee from hipster roasters. Not the imported teas from his business trips to China and Japan. Not the expensive blends his executive assistant ordered from boutique suppliers worldwide. Every beverage reminded him of what he'd lost. So he stopped seeking pleasure in his morning ritual. Coffee became fuel, nothing more. A means to an end, consumed without thought or feeling. I can't find it anymore, Nai, he'd whisper to her photo on his desk. Nobody makes it like you did. Across the city in the Mission District, Elena Rodriguez wiped down the counter of Sunrise Cafe, the small coffee shop she'd inherited from her mother 6 months ago. At 29, Elena had never imagined becoming a business owner. She'd been a graphic designer with dreams of working for major advertising agencies. But when her mother, Rosa Rodriguez, collapsed from a sudden heart attack, everything changed in an instant. Rosa had been the neighborhood's heart. Her cafe wasn't just a business. It was a community center where locals gathered, where the lonely found company, where struggling artists got free coffee when money was tight. Rosa's signature brew, made with a secret blend she perfected over 20 years, had become legendary in the Mission. Coffee is comfort, Mija, Rosa used to say, teaching Elena the careful art of the perfect roast. When you make it right, people don't just wake up, they remember what it feels like to be cared for. Now Elena stood in that same shop, trying to keep her mother's legacy alive while bills piled up and her savings evaporated. The big chain coffee shops were moving into the neighborhood. Rent had increased. Equipment needed repairs she couldn't afford. Some days, she wondered how much longer she could hold on. But every morning at 4 a.m., she'd light the roaster and whisper, "Help me, Mama. Guide my hands." Using her mother's old recipe journal, coffee-stained pages filled with notes in Spanish and English, Elena recreated the blends that had made Rosa famous. She wasn't perfect. Some days the roast came out slightly bitter. Some days her hands shook from exhaustion and grief. But she kept trying, because giving up felt like losing her mother twice. Marcus lived in a world of quarterly earnings and billion-dollar acquisitions. Elena lived in a world of daily survival and small victories. He ate meals prepared by private chefs. She survived on whatever she could grab between serving customers. He traveled by private car. She took the bus. 2 people, 2 losses, 2 hearts searching for something they couldn't name. Neither knew that tomorrow, a wrong turn and a sudden craving would bring them together in a way that would change everything. Sometimes destiny doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It arrives in a simple paper cup, carrying warmth that transcends temperature and taste. Marcus Chin's driver called in sick on a Tuesday morning, a seemingly insignificant event that would alter two lives forever. "I'll drive myself," Marcus told his assistant, surprising everyone. The tech billionaire rarely drove. Why would he, when drivers and car services existed? But that morning, taking the wheel of his Tesla felt right. He needed to clear his head before a crucial board meeting. So he left his Pacific Heights mansion early, intending to take his usual route downtown. Then traffic happened. An accident on Van Ness. Complete gridlock. His GPS automatically rerouted him through the Mission District, a neighborhood Marcus rarely visited despite living in San Francisco for 15 years. As he navigated the unfamiliar streets, memories ambushed him. His grandmother's tea shop had been in a neighborhood like this once. Small businesses crammed together, colorful murals on walls, the smell of authentic food mixing with morning air. Real people living real lives. His chest tightened with unexpected nostalgia. Then he smelled it. Coffee, but not the burnt commercial blend from chain shops. This was different, rich, complex, with notes that reminded him somehow of his grandmother's tea. Warmth wrapped in aroma. Almost unconsciously, Marcus pulled over. He found himself standing in front of Sunrise Cafe, a tiny shop wedged between a taqueria and a laundromat. The paint was faded. The sign needed repair. Through the window, he could see mismatched furniture and walls decorated with local artwork. Nothing about it suggested he should enter. Everything about his schedule demanded he leave. But his feet carried him inside anyway. The cafe was busy with morning regulars, construction workers, nurses ending night shifts, students with laptops, elderly men playing chess in the corner. Everyone seemed to know each other. Conversations flowed in English and Spanish, creating a warm buzz of community. Behind the counter, Elena moved with practiced efficiency, pulling shots and steaming milk while joking with customers. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Flour dusted her Sunrise Cafe t-shirt. She looked exhausted but genuinely happy. When she glanced up and saw Marcus in his $1,000 suit, her smile flickered slightly. Not with judgment, but with the weariness of someone who dealt with gentrification's human face before. "Good morning," she said warmly, professional despite her obvious fatigue. "What can I get you?" Marcus approached the counter, suddenly self-conscious. He didn't belong here. Everything about him screamed outsider. Coffee. Just coffee. We have 6 different roasts today." Elena gestured to a chalkboard menu written in cheerful lettering. "What kind of morning are you having?" The question surprised him. When had anyone asked him that? People asked about his portfolio, his next acquisition, his predictions for the market. Nobody asked about his morning. "Honestly," Marcus said quietly. "A difficult one." Elena's expression softened. Something in his tone must have reached her. "Then you need Mama S special blend. It's what my mother used to make for people who needed comfort more than caffeine." "That sounds perfect." She prepared his coffee with careful attention, grinding beans by hand, monitoring the water temperature, steaming the small amount of milk he requested to exactly the right consistency. Marcus watched, fascinated by the ritual. She moved the way his grandmother had moved, with intention, with care, with something that looked almost like love. "First time here?" Elena asked, handing him the cup. "Yes. I was detoured." "Best detours are the ones we don't plan." She smiled. "That's $4.50. Marcus almost laughed. $4.50. He'd paid $30 for coffee in Tokyo. $50 in Dubai. This might be the cheapest cup he'd had in years. He found a seat by the window and lifted the cup to his lips. The first sip stopped time. It wasn't the taste alone, though the coffee was extraordinary, perfectly balanced, rich without being heavy, complex without being pretentious. It was the feeling, the warmth that spread through his chest, the sense of being cared for, the memory of his grandmother's tea shop, of being young and loved and home. Marcus's hand trembled slightly. He took another sip, then another. Each one unlocked something he'd locked away after his grandmother died. Peace, comfort, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he could feel that kind of warmth again. When he looked up, Elena was watching him with curiosity. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the busy cafe faded away. "Is it okay?" she asked. Marcus struggled to find words. It's like coming home." Marcus Chun did something that morning he hadn't done in 8 years. He arrived late to his board meeting. "Is everything all right?" his CFO asked, concerned. Marcus was legendary for his punctuality. "Everything's fine," Marcus replied, but his mind was still at Sunrise Cafe, still tasting that impossible coffee, still seeing Elena's tired but genuine smile. The meeting dragged. Quarterly projections, expansion strategies, a potential acquisition in Seoul. Marcus contributed when necessary, but his usual laser focus had fractured. He kept thinking about that small cafe wedged between a taqueria and a laundromat. When the meeting finally ended, his assistant Jennifer approached with his schedule. "You have lunch with the Stanford board, then? Cancel everything before noon tomorrow," Marcus interrupted. Jennifer blinked. "Sir, just do it, please." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat on his penthouse balcony, watching the city lights, remembering how Elena had asked, "What kind of morning are you having?" When had anyone treated him like a person instead of a portfolio? The next morning, he drove himself again. This time, no traffic accident forced his route. He chose it deliberately. His heart rate picked up as he parallel parked near Sunrise Cafe, a skill he'd almost forgotten he had. The cafe was busy again. Different faces, same warm energy. And behind the counter, Elena was pulling espresso shots while laughing at something a customer said. She noticed him immediately. Her eyebrows rose in surprise. "The coffee must have been really good if you're back already." "Best I've had in years," Marcus admitted. "Can I get the same?" "One Mama S special coming up." As she prepared his drink, she asked, "Do you work around here? I haven't seen you before yesterday." "No, I work in Soma." True, but evasive. "I took a detour yesterday and found this place." "Best detours, right?" She smiled, remembering her own words from yesterday. Marcus paid, again, the ridiculously modest $4.50, and sat in the same seat by the window. The coffee was just as extraordinary. That same sense of homecoming washed over him. He came back the next day, and the next, and the day after that. By the end of the week, Elena had his order memorized. "Mama S special, extra hot, touch of cinnamon." "You remembered. You're a regular now. We remember our regulars." She handed him the cup with a smile that made something in his chest tighten pleasantly. "Though I still don't know your name." "Marcus." He extended his hand. "Elena." Her handshake was firm, confident. "Welcome to the Sunrise family, Marcus." Over the following weeks, his daily visits became non-negotiable. Marcus rearranged his entire schedule around morning coffee at Sunrise Cafe. Board meetings started at 10 instead of 8. Zoom calls with international partners got moved to afternoons. His executive team adapted, though Jennifer shot him increasingly curious looks. The cafe became his sanctuary. He'd arrive at 7 a.m., when the morning rush had calmed, but before the shop emptied out. He'd sit with his laptop, answering emails, reviewing documents, occasionally taking calls. But mostly, he'd watch Elena work. She was mesmerizing. The way she remembered every regular's name and order. How she'd slip free pastries to the struggling artist in the corner. The patience she showed the elderly woman who took 10 minutes to decide what she wanted. The Spanish she'd switch to effortlessly when neighborhood abuelitas came in. Marcus started noticing other things, too. The equipment that needed replacing. He'd seen her bang the espresso machine twice yesterday to get it working. The leak in the ceiling she'd positioned a bucket under. The anxiety that flickered across her face when certain bills arrived. One morning, he overheard her on the phone during a quiet moment. "I understand the rent increased, but I need time." "Yes, I know I'm 2 weeks late. Please, this cafe is all I have left of my mother." She hung up, pressing her palms against the counter, taking deep breaths. When she looked up and saw Marcus watching, she immediately brightened her expression. "Ready for a refill?" But Marcus had seen behind the smile, and something shifted in him. This wasn't just about coffee anymore. This was about Elena, about this place, about something real in his artificial world of tech and money. Elena, he said carefully, how's business really going? Her smile faltered. Why do you ask? Because, Marcus said quietly, I'd like to help if I can. Elena stared at Marcus suspiciously. Help? Why would you want to help? You don't even know me. I know you make the best coffee in San Francisco, Marcus said carefully. And I know you care about this place and your customers. That's enough. Look, if this is some kind of— Elena lowered her voice, glancing at nearby customers, some kind of rich guy trying to hit on me by throwing money around. I'm not interested. Marcus winced. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Good question. Marcus didn't have a clear answer. He only knew that the thought of this cafe closing, of Elena's light being extinguished by financial pressure, felt physically painful. Let me think about my answer, he said finally. Can we talk later? After you close? Elena hesitated, then nodded. We close at 6. Marcus returned at 6:15 p.m. Through the window, he watched Elena cleaning up, wiping down tables, mopping floors, counting the register with a calculator and notepad. No fancy point-of-sale system. Everything manual. When she unlocked the door to let him in, she looked even more exhausted than usual. She gestured to a table. Want coffee? I was about to make myself one anyway. Please. They sat across from each other with steaming mugs. The cafe felt different, empty, quieter, more intimate. Outside, the Mission District buzzed with evening life. Inside, it was just them. So, Elena said, cradling her mug, why do you want to help a random coffee shop? Because it's not random to me. Marcus chose his words carefully. My grandmother had a tea shop in Chinatown. Small place like this. She poured her soul into every cup. When she died, I lost the feeling of being somewhere I belonged. Elena's expression softened. And you found that feeling here? The first sip of your coffee took me back to her shop, to being cared for, to home. He met her eyes. I haven't felt that in 10 years, Elena. What you create here, it's not just coffee. It's comfort. It's community. And I don't want to see it disappear. She was quiet for a long moment. What do you do, Marcus? For work? Here it was. The moment that might change everything. I'm in tech, software development, and venture capital. Successful. Very. Elena studied him. His expensive watch, his tailored clothes that he'd try to dress down, but still screamed money. How successful are we talking? Marcus pulled out his phone and, after a moment's hesitation, pulled up a Forbes article. He slid it across the table. Elena's eyes widened as she read. Marcus Chun, founder and CEO of Tech Vision, net worth estimated at $2.4 billion. She looked up, face pale. You're that Marcus Chun? I'm still just Marcus, the same guy who's been coming here every morning. No, she pushed back from the table, standing. No, you're not just Marcus. You're a billionaire who's been slumming in my cafe like it's some kind of poverty tourism. That's not fair. Fair. Elena's voice rose. You've been lying to me for weeks, pretending to be a normal customer when you're. She gestured helplessly at the phone. Why? Why come here at all? Was this amusing for you? I never lied. I just didn't tell the truth? That's the same thing. Tears welled in her eyes. I told you about my mother, about struggling to keep this place open, about everything. And you never thought to mention you could buy this entire block without noticing the charge. Marcus stood, desperate. I didn't tell you because this was the first place in years where people didn't treat me like a bank account, where someone asked how my morning was going instead of what my investment strategy is. So, I was your authentic experience? Your real people adventure? No. God, Elena, no. He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. You are the first person in years who's made me feel like myself. Not Marcus Chin, the CEO. Just Marcus. I don't even know who that is. Elena's voice broke. Maybe you don't either. She walked to the door and held it open. I think you should leave. Elena, please. Marcus left, his heart heavy. Behind him, he heard the door lock and, a moment later, the sound of Elena crying. Marcus didn't return to Sunrise Cafe the next morning, or the morning after that. He told himself he was respecting Elena's wishes, giving her space. But truthfully, her words had cut deep. Maybe she was right. Maybe he didn't know who he was anymore beneath the wealth and success. He tried going back to his old routine. Expensive coffee from the artisanal roaster in his office building. It tasted like ashes. 3 days after their confrontation, Marcus was in a meeting when Jennifer interrupted. Something she never did. "Sir, I'm sorry, but there's an emergency call. They said it's about Sunrise Cafe." Marcus's blood ran cold. He grabbed the phone. "This is Marcus Chun." "Mr. Chun? This is Rosa Martinez. I work at the cafe. Elena gave me your card once. Said to call if anything happened." "Sir, there was a fire. The espresso machine malfunctioned, and—" Marcus was moving before she finished the sentence. "Is Elena okay?" "She's fine, but the cafe?" "Mr. Chun, it's bad." 20 minutes later, Marcus pulled up to find fire trucks, smoke, and Elena sitting on the curb with her face in her hands. The cafe's interior was visible through the broken window. Charred walls, destroyed equipment, water damage everywhere. He approached slowly. "Elena." She looked up, eyes red from smoke and tears. "You came." "Of course I came." He sat beside her on the curb, not touching, just present. "Are you hurt?" "No. I was in the back when it happened." Rosa smelled the smoke and pulled me out. Elena gestured helplessly at the destruction. "Everything's gone, Marcus. The espresso machine, the roaster, all of Mama's recipes. I kept them in a binder behind the counter, and now—" Her voice broke. Without thinking, Marcus pulled her against his chest. She resisted for only a second before collapsing into him, sobbing. A fire inspector approached. "Ms. Rodriguez, we've completed the preliminary assessment. The damage is extensive. The electrical system is completely compromised. You're looking at a minimum of $200,000 in repairs and replacement equipment, probably more." Elena made a sound like she'd been punched. "Do you have insurance?" the inspector asked gently. "Basic coverage. It'll cover maybe a third of that." After the inspector left, they sat in silence. The evening crowd that usually filled the cafe stood in clusters nearby. Regulars who become family, watching their community hub burn. "I'm done," Elena whispered. "I can't come back from this. I don't have that kind of money. I can barely afford rent." "Elena, don't." She pulled away from him. "Don't offer to fix this with your billions. I can't accept charity from you." "It's not charity." "Then what is it?" She faced him, exhausted and defeated. "You think because you drink coffee here, because you feel nostalgic, you could just throw money at my problems? That's not how real relationships work, Marcus. That's not how real life works." "Then teach me." The words came from somewhere deep and honest. "Teach me about real life, about real relationships. Because you're right, I don't know anymore. I've been surrounded by people who want something from me for so long, I forgot what it's like to just be with someone. I can't be your teacher, Marcus. I can't be your project. You're not." He took her hands gently. "Elena, I'm in love with you." She froze. "What?" "I've been falling in love with you since that first cup of coffee. Maybe before that. Maybe from the moment I saw you treating every customer like family. You asked me what kind of morning I was having. Do you know how long it's been since someone saw me as a person instead of a transaction?" Tears streamed down Elena's face. "You can't love me. You don't even know me. I know you wake up at 4 a.m. to make sure everything's perfect. I know you give free coffee to people who can't pay. I know you've memorized everyone's orders and their stories. I know you're carrying your mother's legacy with grace, even though you're terrified of failing her." He touched her cheek gently. "I know your coffee tastes like home because you put your heart into every cup. Marcus, let me help. Not as a billionaire. As someone who loves you and believes in what you're building." Elena closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had shifted. "Okay, but as partners, not as charity. I pay you back." "Partners," Marcus agreed, though his heart sang with words she hadn't said back yet. The renovation of Sunrise Cafe began 1 week later. But this wasn't Marcus throwing money at a problem. It was Elena's vision brought to life with his resources. "I want to keep the soul of this place," Elena explained, spreading sketches across Marcus's dining room table. They'd been meeting every evening, planning. not turn it into some fancy boutique cafe. The mission needs a community space, not another gentrification symbol. Marcus studied her drawings. What if we upgrade the equipment but keep the aesthetic? Professional-grade espresso machines that look vintage. New roaster but same process. Better infrastructure, same heart. Elena's eyes lit up. Can we do that? We could do anything you want. They assembled a team carefully. Local contractors who understood the neighborhood. An architect who specialized in historic preservation. Elena insisted on hiring from the community. The construction crew included 3 regulars from the cafe who needed work. Marcus had never worked so closely with someone before. His usual projects happened through intermediaries, executives, lawyers, contractors. But Elena wanted to be involved in every decision. And Marcus found himself showing up at construction sites in jeans and work boots, something his board of directors would never believe. Hand me that level. Elena called from a ladder where she was helping mark wall placements. Marcus passed it up, steadying the ladder. You know, we hired people to do this. I know, but this is my cafe, my mother's legacy. I need to be part of rebuilding it. One afternoon, covered in paint dust, they took a break on the sidewalk. Elena wiped sweat from her forehead, leaving a white streak. Marcus laughed. What? You have paint. He reached out to wipe it away, but Elena caught his hand. Marcus, why are you really doing this? I told you. Because you love me. I know. She held his gaze. But love isn't enough to build something real. Trust is, and I need to know I can trust you. What would prove that? Elena was quiet for a moment. Tell me something true, something you've never told anyone, something that makes you vulnerable. Marcus sat back, considering. In his world, vulnerability was weakness. Information was currency. Truth was strategic. But Elena wasn't his world. She was something completely different. After my grandmother died, he began slowly. I had a breakdown. Full panic attacks. Couldn't sleep, couldn't function. Everyone thought I was grieving normally, but it was more than that. I was terrified. Of what? That without her, I'd become empty. That success would hollow me out until there was nothing left but money and achievements. He met her eyes, and I was right. That's exactly what happened. Until I found your cafe. Elena's hand found his. You're not empty, Marcus. Scared maybe. Lonely definitely. But not empty. How do you know? Because empty people don't notice when a stranger is hurting. They don't remember coffee orders. They don't show up to construction sites when they could be making millions in boardrooms. She squeezed his fingers. You're one of the most full people I've ever met. You just needed someone to see it. Something broke open in Marcus's chest. He pulled Elena close, and this time when he held her, it felt different, like coming home and arriving somewhere new all at once. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered against his shoulder. It terrifies me. Why? Because you could hurt me. You have the power to destroy everything I've built. Not with money, but with your heart. I won't, Marcus promised. Elena, I swear. Don't swear yet. She pulled back to look at him. Let's finish rebuilding the cafe first. Let's see if we can actually work together when things get stressful. Let's make sure this is real and not just grief recognizing grief. It was the most rational thing anyone had ever said to him, and it made him love her more. Okay, he agreed. We'll take it slow. Slow, she echoed, though neither of them moved apart. Behind them, construction continued. The cafe was taking shape, better than before, but still recognizably Sunrise. Still Elena's. Still home. And for the first time in years, Marcus understood that home wasn't a place. It was a person. It was this woman covered in paint dust who challenged him and saw him and made him want to be better than his bank account. The cafe reopened on a Saturday morning, 8 weeks after the fire. The line stretched around the block. Regulars who'd been waiting, curious newcomers attracted by press coverage, and to Elena's mixed feelings, influencers who'd heard about the Billionaire's cafe project. This isn't his project, Elena muttered, watching someone take their 20th photo. This is mine. Marcus, standing beside her in a Sunrise cafe apron that made her heart flutter, squeezed her hand. Then let's remind them whose cafe this is. Elena took a deep breath and unlocked the doors. The renovated space was perfect. New equipment gleamed, but the mismatched furniture remained. Fresh paint brightened the walls, but local artwork still covered them. Everything was better but felt the same, familiar, welcoming home. The first customer was Mrs. Chun, an 80-year-old regular who'd been coming since Rose's time. Elena served her personally. Mama S special blend, extra hot. Mrs. Chen's eyes watered. You remembered. Always. For the first few hours, everything was perfect. The new espresso machine purred smoothly. The roaster worked like a dream. Coffee flowed, customers laughed, and Elena felt her mother's presence everywhere. Then the tech press arrived. Marcus Chun, a reporter, pushed through the crowd. Is it true you've invested $2 million in this cafe? Is this part of TechVision's new community initiative? Before Marcus could answer, 3 more reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Questions flew. The comfortable community space transformed into a media circus. Is the owner your girlfriend? Are you planning to franchise? What's your exit strategy? Elena watched from behind the counter, her chest tightening. This was exactly what she'd feared. Her cafe becoming a story about Marcus instead of about coffee, community, and her mother's legacy. A well-dressed woman approached the counter. Americano, please. And just so you know, everyone's saying you're only successful because you're sleeping with Marcus Chun. Elena's hand froze on the portafilter. Excuse me, I'm just telling you what people are saying. The woman's smile was vicious. That you manipulated a billionaire during his midlife crisis. Smart, really. Get out. Elena's voice was cold. I'm a paying customer. Get out of my cafe. Now. Marcus appeared at Elena's side, his expression dangerous. You heard her. Leave. The woman left, but the damage was done. Elena could feel eyes on her, whispers spreading. She'd gone from respected community business owner to that woman who seduced a billionaire in one morning. Elena, Marcus started. Not now. She turned to the next customer, forcing a smile. The rest of the day was torture. More press. More whispers. More people treating her cafe like a tourist attraction instead of a community space. By closing time, Elena was shaking with suppressed emotion. Everyone out, she announced at 6 p.m. sharp. We're closed. When only Marcus remained, she finally let her composure crack. This is exactly what I was afraid of. My cafe has become Marcus Chin's pet project. My success is being credited to you, not my mother's recipes or my hard work. That's not true. Look at Twitter. She shoved her phone at him. Article after article. Tech billionaire's cafe investment. Marcus Chin's new venture. Silicon Valley meets street coffee. Her name appeared only as owner or occasionally girlfriend. I spent 8 weeks rebuilding my mother's legacy. Elena's voice broke. And in one day, it became yours. Marcus felt sick. I'll issue a statement. I'll make it clear this is your cafe, your vision. That'll just make it worse. Billionaire boyfriend defends cafe owner. Can't you see? As long as we're together publicly, I'll always be in your shadow. What are you saying? Elena's tears fell freely now. I'm saying maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we're from 2 different worlds. Maybe she couldn't finish. Maybe we should break up? Marcus's voice was hollow. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want anymore. I just know I can't breathe. I need space. How much space? I don't know. Elena looked at him with heartbreaking sadness. I love you, Marcus, but I don't know how to love you and keep myself at the same time. She walked out of her own cafe, leaving Marcus standing alone among empty tables and cold espresso machines, wondering how something so right had gone so wrong so fast. Marcus didn't sleep for 3 days. He went to the office and stared at spreadsheets without seeing them. He took calls without hearing them. His executive team exchanged worried glances. Sir, you've missed 2 board meetings, Jennifer finally said. Should I reschedule? What? Yes. No. I don't care. Are you okay? Marcus looked at his assistant, this woman who'd worked for him for 6 years. Have I ever asked you how your mornings are going? Jennifer blinked. Sir, your mornings, your life. Do I know anything about you beyond your work? Well, no, but you're my boss, not my friend. That's the problem. Marcus stood abruptly. Jennifer, take the rest of the week off. Paid. Hell, Take 2 weeks. And when you come back, I want to know about your life. Your real life. Mr. Chun, please. I'm trying to become someone worth loving. Marcus spent those 3 sleepless days thinking. Elena was right. She'd always be in his shadow unless something fundamental changed. But the solution wasn't breaking up. It was breaking down the barriers between their worlds entirely. On the 4th morning, Marcus called an emergency board meeting. I'm stepping down as CEO, he announced. The room erupted. You can't be serious, his CFO sputtered. The company will be fine. Better than fine. Sarah, he nodded to his COO, I've been doing most of the actual work for 2 years anyway. She should be CEO. Marcus, what's going on? Sarah asked. I'm remembering who I wanted to be before I became rich, Marcus said simply. I'm staying on the board. I'm keeping my equity. But I'm done being consumed by work that makes me money instead of happy. After the meeting, Marcus did something else unprecedented. He called a press conference. Standing before cameras and reporters, Marcus Chun, one of Silicon Valley's most private billionaires, told the truth. I've spent the last 10 years building a company and losing myself in the process. Recently, I met someone who reminded me what matters. Her name is Elena Rodriguez. She owns Sunrise Cafe in the Mission District. The reporters leaned forward, sensing a story. The press has been calling it my cafe or my investment project. That's wrong. It's Elena's cafe. Her mother's legacy. Her vision. Her heart. I just provided capital. Anyone with money could do that. What Elena provided was soul. Community. Purpose. Things I'd forgotten existed. He looked directly into the camera, knowing Elena might be watching. The cafe isn't successful because of me. I'm successful, truly successful for the first time in years because of her. Because she taught me that wealth without meaning is just numbers in an account. That real success is measured in how many people you make feel less alone. Marcus pulled out a folder. I'm establishing the Rosa Rodriguez Foundation, named after Elena's mother. $100 million will fund community cafes, bakeries, and restaurants in underserved neighborhoods across the country. The goal isn't profit, it's creating spaces where people feel they belong. And Elena will run it? A reporter asked. If she wants. Or she can just run her cafe. Or she can tell me to get lost forever. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. I'm not doing this to win her back. I'm doing it because she was right. I needed to use my privilege to amplify others, not overshadow them. He stepped away from the podium and walked out, ignoring shouted questions. That evening, as Marcus sat in his penthouse, wondering if he'd done the right thing, his doorbell rang. He opened it to find Elena, tears streaming down her face. $100 million, she said. Your mother deserves to be remembered. So do 1,000 other mothers like her who poured love into feeding their communities. You stepped down as CEO. It was time. Elena stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Marcus Chun, you are the most frustrating, wonderful, completely insane man I've ever met. Is that good or bad? Instead of answering, she kissed him. And in that kiss was forgiveness, love, and the promise of something real built on equal ground. We're going to figure this out, she whispered against his lips. Together, as actual partners. Together, Marcus agreed, holding her like he'd never let go. 6 months later, Sunrise Cafe had become something extraordinary, not because of Marcus's money, but because Elena's vision finally had the resources to flourish. The original location thrived, busier than ever, but still intimately connected to the neighborhood. Mrs. Chun still got her Mama's special every morning. Construction workers still started their days with Elena's coffee. The chess players still occupied their corner table. But now there was more. The Rosa Rodriguez Foundation had opened 5 community cafes across the Bay Area, each one run by local entrepreneurs with similar stories. Immigrants, single parents, people who'd lost loved ones and were cooking their way through grief. Elena managed the foundation with the same care she'd given her cafe. She visited each location monthly, tasting their coffee, learning their stories, helping them honor their own mothers' and grandmothers' legacies. You've created something beautiful, Marcus told her one evening as they reviewed applications for new locations. We've created something beautiful, Elena corrected. She'd learned to accept his partnership without feeling overshadowed. I couldn't do this without your support, and I wouldn't want to do anything without you. They'd found their balance. Marcus had taken on strategic advising roles at several startups, work that challenged him without consuming him. Most mornings, he still showed up at Sunrise Cafe, but now he occasionally worked behind the counter, badly, according to the regulars, but enthusiastically. Marcus, you're over-extracting the espresso again. Elena called from across the cafe. I'm creating new flavor profiles, he protested. You're creating bitter disappointment. The customers laughed. They'd adopted Marcus as part of the cafe's charm. The billionaire who couldn't make coffee but showed up anyway, learning humility one burnt shot at a time. One evening, as they locked up the cafe together, Marcus pulled Elena toward the corner table where they'd first had their real conversation. Remember when you said you couldn't be with me and keep yourself? He asked. I remember being terrified and stupid. Not stupid, right? Marcus took her hands. You pushed me to become someone worth being with. Someone who uses privilege to elevate, not dominate. Someone who measures success and impact, not income. Marcus, let me finish. He took a deep breath. Elena Rodriguez, you saved my life. Not metaphorically, literally. I was drowning in emptiness, and you threw me a lifeline made of coffee and compassion. You taught me that home isn't a place. It's a person. It's you. He knelt, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a small diamond that caught the cafe's warm lighting. Will you marry me? Elena's hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God, I know it's fast. I know we've had our struggles. But I also know I want to spend every morning for the rest of my life drinking your terrible coffee. My coffee is amazing. And every evening, counting the register together. I want to open 100 more cafes honoring mothers who poured love into their communities. I want to teach our kids the difference between wealth and worth. I want to grow old in this cafe, probably still over-extracting espresso while you yell at me from across the room. Tears streamed down Elena's face. You really can make coffee. Is that a yes? You're going to need serious training. She laughed through tears. But yes, Marcus Chun, I will marry you. I will build this empire with you. I will teach our children about their grandmothers, both of them, and how love tastes like home. Marcus slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that tasted like coffee and salt tears and perfect happiness. Outside, the Mission District hummed with life. Inside Sunrise Cafe, surrounded by the ghosts of mothers who'd loved through cooking, two people who'd found each other through grief and coffee promised forever. We should tell our families, Elena said eventually. We should. Marcus held her close. But first, can you make me one more cup of Mama S special? At this hour? I want to remember this moment exactly as it tastes. Elena laughed, that warm, genuine sound that had captured his heart months ago, and walked behind the counter to brew one more cup of the coffee that had changed both their lives forever. 5 years later, Marcus stood on the rooftop of the Rosa Rodriguez Foundation's headquarters, a beautifully renovated building in the Mission District, walking distance from the original Sunrise Cafe. Below, the city buzzed with Saturday energy. From this height, he could see 3 of their 17 cafe locations scattered across San Francisco. 32 more existed across California, Oregon, and Washington. Each one honored a family legacy while building community. Papa, look! Marcus turned to find his 4-year-old daughter, Rosa Elena Chun, running toward him with a tiny espresso cup. Behind her, Elena carried their 1-year-old son, Wei, named after Marcus's grandmother. Mama, let me make coffee, Rosa announced proudly. More like she watched me make coffee and added the cinnamon, Elena corrected with a smile. Marcus scooped up his daughter. Did you use Banai's special technique? Uh-huh. Slow and with love. Rosa repeated the phrase she'd heard 1,000 times. Elena settled beside them on a bench, Wade dozing against her shoulder. From here, they could see the mural that covered the foundation headquarters. 2 women painted in vibrant colors, Rosa Rodriguez and Mei Chun, forever smiling down on the empire built in their names. Your grandmother would be proud, Elena said softly, following his gaze. Both our grandmothers. Marcus wrapped an arm around his family. They'd probably be best friends, arguing about whether tea or coffee is superior. No argument. Coffee wins. Maynai and I would destroy you in that debate. They laughed, a sound as comfortable as breathing after 5 years together. The wedding had been perfect, held in the original Sunrise Cafe, surrounded by regulars and construction workers, and Mrs. Chun crying happily in the front row. No society pages, no tech press, just community and love and coffee that tasted like home. The foundation had become Marcus's primary focus. He still advised startups occasionally, but his real work was finding people like Elena, entrepreneurs with heart and heritage who needed capital and guidance to build something meaningful. Remember when you told me you couldn't be with me and keep yourself? Marcus asked. Vividly, I was terrified I'd disappear into your shadow. And instead, Elena smiled. Instead, you stepped into the light with me. We built something together where both our names matter. Where it's not Marcus Chin's foundation or Elena's cafes. It's ours. The Rodriguez Chun legacy. Rosa wiggled down and ran to the roof's edge, safely barred, pointing excitedly at the original Sunrise Cafe visible in the distance. That's where you and Papa fell in love. That's where Papa fell in love with my coffee first, Elena corrected. Then with you, Marcus added. The coffee just introduced us. Speaking of, Elena, check her watch. The anniversary celebration starts in an hour. Every year on the reopening date, they held a massive block party around the original cafe. Free coffee, live music, local artists, community celebration. This year marked 5 years since the fire that had destroyed everything and rebuilt it stronger. As they headed downstairs, Marcus caught Elena's hand. Thank you. For what? For teaching me that wealth means nothing without purpose. For showing me that success is measured in cups of coffee that make people feel less alone. For loving me when I was empty and helping me become full. Elena squeezed his fingers. Thank you for seeing value in a struggling cafe owner when you could have anyone. I didn't want anyone. I wanted home. I wanted you. At the block party later, surrounded by hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by their work, Marcus watched Elena move through the crowd. She still remembered everyone's names, still gave free coffee to those who needed it, still poured love into every cup. Rosa held his hand, already learning to make friends the way her mother did, with warmth and authenticity. Wei slept peacefully in a carrier on Marcus's chest, unbothered by the noise. This was success. Not billions in a bank account, but impact measured in communities strengthened and legacies honored. Not power over others, but partnership with them. Not emptiness filled with expensive possessions, but fullness built from love and coffee and remembering where you came from. Marcus looked up at the mural of the two grandmothers. We did it, he whispered. We turned your legacies into something that will outlive us all. And in the San Francisco sunshine, surrounded by the smell of coffee and the sound of community, Marcus Chun, former tech billionaire, current father and husband, always student of what makes life worth living, felt completely, perfectly at peace. The end. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful journey. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories about love, loss, and redemption. Comment below. What was your favorite moment? Which character did you connect with most? Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next heartfelt story. Remember, home isn't a place. It's the people who make you feel like you belong. Until next time, keep believing in the power of love and community. Red Heart Hot Beverage.